Hey gang, Bronco Carl 92 here. So today in the shop we have a 2004 Honda Pilot that has a no start condition. Okay, so here's what we got. So let's get her in the garage and get that starter changed. Okay, so how did I determine this car needs a starter? Well, we've been dealing with an intermittent no start problem on this car for a few months now. Every time the car doesn't start, she takes the key out and puts it back in, and maybe one or two tries later it starts again. She actually just drove the car out to Michigan with no problems at all, and then she got back and got stuck around the corner from here. So she was going to try getting the thing jump started, and I said, it's doing it right now, let me come over and see. So fortunately when I showed up, it still wasn't starting. So I put a meter on the battery, and when we cranked it, or put the key to the crank position, the battery voltage hardly dropped at all. We fiddled with it a couple times. I checked the voltage at the starter solenoid from the key in the start position, and we were getting a full, about 11 volts because the solenoid was pulling a little bit. Gave the starter a little whack, and the car started. So car has over 100,000 on it, like 134 I believe. At this point I believe the starter is probably past its useful life, so we're going to put a new starter in it. So let's get started. Alright, so first order of business, disconnect the battery because we're going to be dealing with the electrical system. So this is very simply a 10 millimeter. Take that off and just put it aside so the cable can't jump back over. Now, the nice thing about this is, looks like we can do the starter right from the top. That means we don't have to jack the car up. We don't have to worry about safety stands. We don't have to worry about laying on our back. And so all we have to do is remove this engine cover and this valve cover overlay over here, and we should be able to move the hoses out of the way and get to the starter down here. I'll reposition the camera and we'll get going. So first up, we're gonna take off this engine cover here. So it's 4 10 millimeter bolts. Fasteners, screws, whatever you want to call them. Fine, be that way. And then we have this little decorative cover over here that covers up the coils. Just lifts off. And now, starter is right down here underneath these hoses. So it looks like we have two 17 millimeter bolts that go into the transaxle. Why don't we unbolt the starter and see if we can get enough on the cables to remove it. So get you back on in a sec. Okay, so the top bolt seems to be pretty easily accessible. The bottom one, not really so much. I lied. You kind of have to not really get under the car, but you need to get to the bottom bolt from underneath. So let's get this top one first. Like I said, 17. Hopefully you can see it and I'm not in the way. I'm sure if I am, someone's going to complain. Yes, it's very tight. And cut that glove open. That's a nice long bolt and finely threaded. Okay, now let's see if we can. Oh, sorry about that. I think if you look, you can probably see my extension that's on the bottom, which I have on there with a swivel. I pulled this lower cover loose over here. I've got a long extension, and you can see it kind of snakes up to the starter there. It's not lit up the best, but you get the idea. And the bottom bolt feels like it's just as long as the top one. Starter's loose. Oh yes, oh this bolt's really long. Ta-da! Okay, I just removed this long 8mm bolt from the bottom of the starter motor, which held on the bracket that supports the battery cable, and there's a hose underneath there also. Alright, so now there's a 12mm nut on here that holds the cable, battery cable to the starter. Sneak my hands down in here. I'm sorry there's not a better place to stick the camera so you can see this. That actually cracked loose quite easy. Seems this job goes much better with some of these swivel extensions here. And just pop the cable off. And there's a starter. Alright, so here's our new CarQuest starter. Here's our old starter. I just have to pull this bolt out so I can stick the bracket on there. We'll pop this in place and get it bolted back in. Okay, so I don't know when the battery died. I guess I'll find out when I go for editing. I have the cable in place, and I have the bracket for the harness and hose in place. I'm going to pop the starter back into its cavity. And I'm going to take the mile-long lower bolt. And probably cuss a little. Maybe that's easier to feed in from underneath. Oh yeah. You can even wind it all the way in with your fingers. Okay, now we got a top bolt. Okay. Get the bottom tightened. All right, one more shot of what I did here in the wheel well. I basically undid this. Over here, there's a couple clips here, here, here. And you make that loose so you can pull this tray out of the way. And then over here, right through here, you can get up there with your long extension. Alright, lastly, we just have to hook up our starter trigger wire. And once again, I'm sure you can't see what I'm doing. Because I can hardly see what I'm doing. Good. Okay, so I got the engine cover back on. And just hook our battery back up. That's that. All right, let's see what happens. That sounds good. Okay, now you'll notice that our nav screen needs a code and our radio is out too. So fortunately, the people that prepped this car originally just put the codes right there. So nice if it gets stolen, I guess. So enter code. So I'm assuming that, hey, 1 1 1 2 1. Nope, that's a 4-digit code, and I have a 5. So that must be for the radio. So the code here is 3037. Done. Okay, so that's good, and then the radio is 1 1 1 2 1. There you go. Excellent. Okay, so that wasn't too bad. A little tight spot, but otherwise a relatively easy repair. I'd say probably maybe a 5. So anyhow, as always, thanks for watching Bronco Carl 92, and we'll catch you again soon. Take care.